Roll. Let's call this meeting to order. This is the June 20th, 2018 meeting of the Concord City Planning Board. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Chairman Woodfin?
Here.
Councilor Champlin?
Here.
Member Smithmeyer?
Here.
Member West? Member Fox?
Here.
Member Hicks?
Here.
Member Regan?
Here.
We good with quorum?
Yes, we are.
You're supposed to be here? Okay, so we will open the meeting. We've got item 3 on our agenda to approve the minutes of our May meeting. Any recommendations or changes to those minutes? If not, we'll take a motion to approve those minutes as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Nice and loud. Aye, there you go. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I abstain. I wasn't present at the last meeting.
Okay, note for the record that Councilor Champlin just abstained from the May minute vote as he was not present. Quick overview, we've only got one item tonight that changed. Item 9E has been pulled off the agenda as by request of the applicant. That is for Merrimack County Courthouse. Has been postponed to the July 18th meeting, so if anybody's here for that, that item will not be heard tonight. And that brings us to our item number 5, which is our determination of completeness component. We've got 2 items on here. If we could read item 5A into the record.
Yep, we have just one item.
One
It's
item,
the,
sorry.
Douglas Engineering on behalf of Smokestack Realty requesting major site plan approval to construct a new access road and parking areas totaling approximately 22,000 square feet of new impervious area at 254 North State Street in the Institutional District. Staff recommends the application be determined complete and the public hearing set for the July 18th meeting.
Okay, so we've got a determination of completeness from staff recommendation. Somebody like to make a motion to approve that?
I move that we determine the application to be complete.
Second.
That motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. That brings us to item 6. Read that into the record.
New Hampshire Department of Transportation is notifying the board in accordance with RSA 67454 for construction of a memorial to Public Works employees at 7 Hazen Drive. Staff reviewed this, didn't have any issues. We made a few comments, and I believe they are here tonight to speak.
Come on up. Hi, you can come right up to the table. That would be great. That's too formal over there. So yeah, right in the middle. Right in the middle is great.
Feels a little more formal.
That's a little less. That's a little less formal. Trust us, it's easy to get used to it. Hi, if you could just state your name for the record, tell us quick about the project. I think we've had it in our packet, so we've had a chance to look at it.
Yes, great. My name's David Rodrigue. I'm the Director of Operations for the Department of Transportation. Sadly, over the last 50 years, 30 Public Works employees have died on the job in New Hampshire, and many more have been injured. 9 years ago, the New Hampshire legislature passed a law authorizing a committee to oversee the design, construction, and maintenance of a memorial to honor these Public Works employees. The RSA provides for the construction of the memorial and requires that the Director of Operations, subject to the direction and supervision of the Commissioner of Transportation, shall act as custodian of the Public Works Employee Memorial and shall have charge of all matters relating to the care, maintenance, repair, and additions to the memorial. RSA 49K3 requires a committee to select a location. That location was selected at 7 Hazen Drive, DOT headquarters here in Concord. A design contest was put on. Kelsey Lee was the winner of the designer. That design was then converted to plans that the board has had and seen. The memorial will include 4 granite stones representing the 4 seasons when Public Works employees are outside working in the elements. The stones will be engraved with the names of the people who have died. 24 shovels will represent the 24 hours of the day when Public Works employees are called to work. The brick and chip seal walkways represent some of the materials Public Works employees work with. Benches and plantings will complete the memorial. Construction scheduled to start in late July and complete by early October. So thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions, comments, or
Perfect.
suggestions.
Well done. Well done. Nice, quick, succinct review. Is it right on Hazen Drive? So as I'm heading towards 393 on Hazen Drive. It's on my
Yes.
left-hand side,
It will
right
be
in
on your
front.
left-hand
So
side.
right visible from the street?
Yes, it will be.
Perfect, great. Looks great.
Super.
Looks great. Any questions from the board?
I just
Suzanne?
wanted to ask, in the rendering, are the shovels the things that are
Yes,
lined
they
up?
are.
Okay.
Yes, they
Kinda
are.
like
Is
the
it along
signs.
the walkway?
It is along the walkway, but will be set back to leave room for snow removal and snow storage in a snowbank there.
It's perfect. It's perfect. There's no public hearing component for this, correct? Since it's a 674.
At your discretion.
But any questions, any other questions from the board? So
Sign
great
in.
looking project. If you could just sign in for the record for Lisa, we'll know who you are and we'll move on. You're all set?
Thank you,
Okay,
absolutely. Thank
great.
you.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to item 7 on our agenda, which is design review applications by consent. We've got applications in our packet here, and if you're in the audience for items 7A, B, C, and D, which are, I believe, sign applications. Yes, they're all sign applications. If you have a question about one of those or don't agree with the application as it's been submitted or have an issue with the application as it's been submitted, just make yourself known and we'll pull that item from the agenda. Any member of the board wish to pull any of those items from the agenda? Again, 7A, B, C, or D? No? Staff good with all of them? Any member of the audience wish to pull any of those agenda items off the agenda? Everybody wants to move right along, so we will accept all of those under design review recommendations. Were there any specific design review application or recommendations, Heather, on these? I don't think there were.
There was on the subway, it was subject to the condition that the 2 existing signs mounted in the doorway be removed.
Okay.
Everything else was, I believe, as...
Approved as submitted, okay. So as we'll do normally, we'll recommend that ADR approval as outlined in the minutes to remove those 2 signs. Is that what it was? To remove those 2 side signs. If someone would like to make a motion to approve those items as appear on the consent agenda,
So approved.
we will move that to the record. That motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. That brings us to our public hearing section, item 8 on the agenda. So design review applications. We've got item 8A, bread and chocolate. If we could read that into the record.
Bread and Chocolate on behalf of 31 South Main Acquisition LLC requesting ADR approval to replace an existing projecting sign at 29 South Main Street in the Central Business Performance District. So this was originally recommended for approval back in March, and then it was postponed multiple months due to questions about the fact that it had already been installed
Right.
and that the sign brackets had been relocated.
Is anybody here from that? I don't see Mr. Chorley in here, so, no? Okay, so ADR's reviewed this again.
Yes, and Mr. Chorlian is the owner of the condo units, and he had relocated and installed the brackets. I'll just give you a summary of what was discussed. He explained that he did that because they were rotting and they were basically falling off the building, and it was a safety concern. He relocated them because they had wanted to put some lights up in the other location, so that's just what made sense. This sign was recommended for approval originally, and the only reason it was postponed was because this applicant wanted to, they wanted to keep this and the next one tailored together because they're the same property. John owns both condominium units.
Right.
So there was no recommendations or conditions for this sign.
Other than holding that you don't do that unless you get
Correct.
approval to do that. I know that took place at ADR as well, so we won't go into that again. Okay, so we're going to take this one separately, and I know there was some questions regarding the tailored interior one, so why don't we address that one separately? Any member of the audience wish to address this application? Member of the board, any members of the board have any questions about this application? Recommendations from staff? Nothing?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, so we'll take a motion to approve that. If someone would like to make a motion to approve that as submitted.
I will make the motion to approve the bread
I'll
and
second.
chocolate.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Brings us to 8B. Could we read that into the record?
Tailored Interiors on behalf of 31 South Main Acquisition, requesting ADR approval to replace an existing projecting sign at 29 South Main Street in the Central Business Performance District. This sign originally was not recommended for approval based on the fact that they felt that it was difficult to read, that the colors made it difficult to read, that there was too much text on the sign, and that the size of the text was too small. The applicant attended the ADR meeting along with Mr. Chorlian and explained that these are her logo colors, and that the main issue was the text along the bottom, which was that red color, which even in this sort of blow-up cannot be seen and is listing too many items. So they discussed that for a while, and ADR ultimately made the recommendation that that line of text be removed. She was not in favor of that and asked what if she could just make them white so they were more visible. But she also shared with us that she may actually not be, she may be retiring in a year, so she was sort of making the case that potentially the sign wouldn't be up for very long.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
That was not a compelling
Is the
argument.
applicant here?
No.
No? Okay.
That was, so they again just requested that the bottom line of the
So
small
the-
red text.
As
be
it
removed.
sits, item 8B, with the recommendation from ADR, they'll approve the sign and the accompanying brackets with the recommendation that the bottom line of text be removed.
Right, that it just be sort of blacked out.
Okay.
somehow. There was also the comment that the same line of text in the same list of items is on the door.
Right.
There's a window sign that has.
Yeah, it is hard to read. Even walking under it, it's hard to read, even though it's already up and not supposed to be up, so. Any member of the audience wish to address this application? No? Any member of the board have a question, or will we accept the motion to grant this as submitted with the recommendation that the bottom line of text be removed as ADR has recommended?
I will so move.
Second.
That motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 8B with the recommendation.
I'm opposed.
You're opposed, okay, sorry. So for the note, for the record, Suzanne Smith-Myers is opposed to that recommendation.
John just walked in.
I believe I-
Hey, John? Come on up for a sec. You're late. So,
And you're underdressed.
bread and chocolate,
Oh, sorry.
so bread and chocolate,
And down the hill.
Yes.
bread and chocolate's,
Thanks for your
bread and chocolate's been approved with an appropriate scolding for moving it and not,
Should scold me and not.
telling anybody. Tailored Interiors was approved with the recommendation as outlined in ADR that the bottom line of text be removed.
Yes,
Okay?
my apologies on,
That's it. I'm only kidding. No,
No,
it's,
really.
it's what, 12 minutes past the hour, we're already at
I
item
mean,
8,
on
so.
the
Oh, no.
procedure up to this.
Yes. You should know better. Shame on you. Okay, so you're all set. We just took a vote so that those have been approved, so
Yes, can
you're good.
we just see- I don't know if you wanted any changes or if you wanted to.
Didn't even get a vote. Okay, so let's move on to item 8C. Is that Paul with 2 L's or Paul with 1 L?
It
With
was
two.
Paul with 2 L, Paul Nails. If we could read that into the record?
Paul Niels, on behalf of 31 South Main Acquisition LLC, requesting ADR approval to install a new wall sign at 31A South Main Street in the Central Business Performance District. ADR recommended denial of this application based on the fact that they felt that it was not consistent with the character of the architecture or of the streetscape or of the surrounding character of the streetscape or the other signs in the area.
Okay, or in anything in general. Is the applicant here? Oh, come on. John, you want to come up and represent? No, kidding. Okay.
They recommended denial, basically.
Yeah, anybody like to take an opposing recommendation on that and approve that sign? If not, we'll make a motion as outlined by ADR to deny that application.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any comments from the audience? I know I asked if they were here. No comments to the audience. Make sure I do everything right. Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. That has been denied.
Item 8D is Mill River Wealth Management on behalf of Capital Street Associates requesting ADR approval to install 2 new window signs at 97 North Main Street in the Central Business Performance District. This application was originally, there was some confusion about what was being proposed because there was extra information that wasn't supposed to be there in the packet. So ADR recommended tabling the application just because they couldn't figure out one way or the other what was going on. We subsequently learned that it is actually the one sign in the window, which nobody had any issue with. Code also wasn't clear on how many signs there were. The issue being that in the application, it indicates the text Mill River Wealth being on all of the small wheel graphics that actually is, which would make them signs subject to being regulated, but that text is actually not there. That's just a plain white shade with the.
Which is also already there, already installed.
Right, but which is not subject to our regulation. So the only sign that is subject to the regulation is the blue one that you see in your graphics on the left that has the logo and the text and the sign.
And that has not been installed? Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Come on up.
Tom Simokoski,
Great.
Marion County Savings Bank.
If you could just tell us what we're looking at here on our packets, so that I've been by a couple times and I've seen the window graphics. So I think there's some gray or black window graphics with the nautical wheel or whatever that is, and then there's some blue ones as well.
Yes, there's graphics. The only thing that we're looking for is the banner on the left window, which would be in your packet there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just just the one left window, not the graphic that's above the banner. It's just the banner itself that says Mill River.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And is that on the window or?
It's actually inside the window, and it hangs actually like a shade.
Yes, not this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any member of the audience wish to address this application? No? We'll just let you stay there. Member of the board have a question? So tell me, Heather, why again does this trigger review on our end?
Since it has the text and the logo, Mill River,
But
it's considered a sign because it has the text there. The
is it a
others,
movable, is it like, can you move this around? Could you take this and put it in another window, or is it?
It hangs like a shade with two brackets.
Okay.
In the window.
Inside the building?
Inside the window, yes.
so it's considered a window sign
Okay,
essentially.
okay. Okay, recommendation from staff, or any?
Well, as I said, ADR recommend tabling it because it's
Just because they didn't
unclear,
have
so
the-
it's up to you what you would like to do with it.
That's fine.
I'd move up.
Okay, so any other discussion regarding that? We've got a motion to move approval and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. As submitted, yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, it brings us to 8E on our agenda. Yes.
Can you,
Dick?
excuse me, sir, can you just submit some revised graphics that show clearly what you're proposing? So essentially, just submit something that has the other text removed.
Certainly.
Thank you.
I'll drop that off to the...
The code office. Drop it off to code.
Okay.
Yep,
No problem.
perfect,
Thank you.
thanks.
All right, item 8E on our agenda. Come on up, gentlemen. If we could read that into the record?
The Hotel Concord, on behalf of Capital Commons LLC, requesting ADR approval for a new wall sign and building lighting at 11 South Main Street in the Central Business Performance District.
Always excited to hear building lighting. Staff recommendations, staff comments?
A short summary is that ADR was in favor of the application. The recommendation for the signs was subject to a condition that the text be centered on the Capitol Commons plaque sign, and then the lighting approved subject to the condition that it not be blinking, flashing, moving, and that the transitions to different colors be made slowly when they occur. But I will let them present their whole project.
18 pages, is that right? 18 pages in this? Gonna have to wait for a few minutes until my system loads here, shows me what we got.
So the packet-
let's get your names for the record if we could, gentlemen.
Good evening, Anthony Mento from SMP Architecture.
Are they still there?
Hello, my name is Michael Simchick from Capitol Commons and the Hotel Concord.
Great, so tell us a little bit about your project if you could.
So as you may know, the Capitol Commons is rebranding itself a bit, and we're bringing a new hotel to many of the floors within the space. A new lobby on the main level, The fourth floor will house a series of guest rooms, and we're currently working on the development of the top floor, sixth floor penthouse to have an additional 17 rooms, a total of 38 guest rooms in this very nice high-end boutique hotel. Our application was separated into a few different sections. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. There you go.
And we included a fair amount of background because the building has earlier signage that was previously approved, and we were modifying it. So currently, we're here to talk about the front entry. Last couple weeks ago, City Council approved a new canopy to go above the existing entry and the archway. So the Capitol Commons and the 11 sign will be removed. So we're here today to get approval for a new arched entry sign that says the Hotel Concord, which will be mounted below the canopy. Seen there, not very large, but seen there. In addition, we had submitted some plaque signs that would go on the side walls of the recessed nook into the entry. They would be plaques smaller in scale, mounted on the sides. There was some conversations about those. We can discuss them if we need to. And lastly, we're here today to talk about some architectural accent lighting on the roof element shown in the image here. We heard from city staff and Architectural Design Review many months ago when we started planning this project that they're interested in having architectural lighting components added to the streetscape. So we looked at various options around the building, and that building itself has a unique character with that cornice soffit. And so we found a solution to illuminate it. For the last month, we've had a sample installed on one small section. And from that, we show a photo of it here, how it would look. It's not perfect in that photo because there's some modifications that need to be done so that the light casts cleanly and consistently across the soffit. But rendered, this is more or less how it would appear. One solid colored light. The color could change from day to day, but it would stay on. It would be a static light. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, looks beautiful. So the intent is to make this an older looking entry. It looks great. I mean, I love the portico, classic, not older. I meant a classic, a classic where the stagecoach used to pull up in the front. The Hotel Concord arch sign that's over it, is that a sign, or is it? It's hard to tell on the rendering here if it's like a piece of granite with it engraved in it, and will that be lit at all?
It will be. So there's a back panel that's going to be mounted on the facade of the building, and it's meant to conceal all the holes that are going to exist when the existing sign comes off. But then there'll be dimensional letters placed upon this backer panel, and it will be rear illuminated, so it'll be like a halo.
Okay. So it'll be lit within, say, the H, inside the H is lit and it lights up behind onto the sign, is that right? Or
yeah, I don't think the face of it is going to be lit.
at all.
It's just going to glow around the outside, and that kind of ties into some of the interior lighting that we have in the guest rooms. So we're trying to blend things together.
So in that space that I'm looking at with the rendering, with the overhang, what was in the pre-drilled holes? I noticed a pre-drilled hole. What signs are in that space right now? What's in that from the McLean sign to the whatever the bank is, whatever the left-hand side is? That's all that's there right now, right?
Yes, sir.
So will those two be coming down?
Yes, sir.
And where will those be going?
Those will not be replaced.
Okay.
Because
good.
the canopy is going to be there.
That's good. Okay, so you're not pushing them down farther on the building or moving them anywhere.
Included in this application is another blade sign, which wasn't included.
It's further down.
Yeah, okay. That says the Hotel Concord. it may be used, it may not be used, it may be used just to replace something that was previously already approved, but it's got new text, and so staff recommended that we include it.
Yep, so that would be the same format, or the same, not the one that's there, that's just a temporary sign, but the new design with the logo that we see on the couple pages down. So the H and the C in the middle, and then the hotel con, the black sign that's in our packet, up a little bit from yours. So
Yes.
that was a temporary one that's up there now, right?
That's correct, that
Okay,
was
so,
just for during construction.
so scroll up. So that one, that's, if you use the blade sign that you're gonna replace it with, that'll be there, okay?
Same proportions.
Okay, and then the lighting, on the lighting, it obviously goes around the whole side of the building. What's on the other side? What's on the highway side? Anything?
Same thing.
Same thing.
360 degrees all the way around.
Okay, comments from staff?
No, I would just, this may be a little confusing, there's so many pages in it. All of the blade signs that are in the bottom, like, I don't know, 12 pages or whatever, were part of a previously approved package, and as long as they traded them something out that was similar enough, they weren't required to come for review. So that's why there's no motion for those signs, because they're considered previously approved from the original sign packet. The only recommendation that staff had that we didn't discuss was on the page is this 5, where it's showing 2 plaque signs. These are proposed to be on the inside wall, and the recommendation was just that the one on the right be centered in the sign. But other than that-
Oh, on the inside, like on the
Right.
inside the.
Correct.
Okay,
You can
gotcha.
see them.
You can see them there, yeah. Be centered, what do you mean be centered?
So see how the Capitol Commons is on the
Oh,
bottom?
yeah,
of
down on the
They
ball.
just asked that it be centered on the sign, instead of being on the bottom.
And it's not square, it's got the curved edge too. Why wouldn't those be the same?
It's referencing the footprint of.
It's the Capitol Commons logo.
Logo
That
is the
whole
corner-
sign,
is
the
the
whole
corner
proportions of it, the location of the lettering,
Gotcha.
lower justified. So there was some conversations about wanting to retain the intent of the company's logo and not redesign it, so.
So we're sensitive to what ADR was discussing with us, and we're willing to, tweak that and think about it, but we haven't really taken that aspect really that much further at this point in time.
Okay. Byron?
Oh, thank you. So if I understand correctly, the image on the right is your logo with the wording space placed there.
Correct.
My inclination would be to say just like as if it was Coca-Cola's, logo. If it's your logo, it's your logo, and that's what you should keep. I'll just throw that out.
Can I interject?
You may.
The logo has a number, so none of their other signs have a blank space with text on the bottom. All of the other signs have a number, which is the property address, taking up that space.
Yep.
And then the text on the bottom. They also don't look like this. They all look very different sizes of fonts, different sizes of the address number, different sizes of, they all look different. So there's no Coca-Cola type consistency.
You're sensitive to the fact too that people are gonna come looking for the Capitol Commons and not the Concord Hotel. So, businesses that are on floor 2 or 5 or whatever, they're gonna be looking for the business name, not the hotel name to find an entrance. So I'm sensitive to that too. But, right, I mean, I get it.
You could put an 11 there. So
Yeah.
That's the,
That was one of the suggestions?
Put a number in, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, if you have other uses of that logo that have numbers on them.
As I said, we are sensitive to what we were told, we were talked about with, and as far as we're concerned, we're just still working through that internally.
Okay. I do have another question.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman. From the night photograph, not the one of the sample lighting, but the right there, the
rendering?
The rendering there, yeah.
I have a larger version printed if it's.
No, it's okay. I just have a question, which I cannot tell from this whether the brick decorative pediment below the railing of the balcony is uplit in any way, or whether it's not. So it's just the canopy.
Correct.
That's lit. Okay.
Currently, on the exterior facade of the penthouse, the 6th floor, that material is all metal. And there are wall sconces between the storefronts. Those will remain illuminating out, but there's no new elements of lighting on the brick facade itself below the railing.
Okay. I'm still trying to get somebody to uplight pediments.
Old buildings, though. Focus on old buildings.
Well, but we need to set the trend, but this is a great step in the right direction.
So the light channels are on the inside of the building, right? And they'll wash out to the outside?
They are not actually. They're on the face of the building, right above the top window transom.
Oh.
And it's a kind of a triangular shaped fixture shining up with a lens to control it, so it's a cutoff. It would be directed solely to wash the underside of the soffit, but it's an exterior fixture.
Okay. Questions from the board? No? Any member of the audience wish to address this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing that we didn't open. So we'll open the public hearing and we'll close the public hearing. All right, and any other recommendations from staff? I know we had a recommendation on the sign, the blade sign that was there, on the, no, not the blade sign, but the sign that's going to be on the side of the building. Anything else?
No, everyone was, had pretty favorable.
Yeah,
Towards
it looks
the
like a beautiful project.
It'd be a real asset to downtown.
So,
I've wanted to have a boutique restaurant, hotel, rather downtown for a while, so.
okay, so there's nothing in here for a report. What do we have on this for?
Excuse me?
There's nothing in here for a report. All there is the application.
Because it's a ADR.
Oh,
Because
so
it's an ADR
there's no site
application.
plan or nothing at all. So we just need a motion to approve it as submitted with no ADR recommendations either, right?
Well, the ADR recommendations was subject to the one sign text being centered and subject to the lighting being fixed and not flashing, blinking, and making slow transitions.
So I'm inclined, and I'll speak as a member here, but I'm inclined to give the applicant a little bit of leeway on the logo sign, understanding that it is their logo, but maybe working to be able to put something that kind of balances it left to right. And you understand ADR's concern is it looks funny and that they don't want it to look different than the other side of the building. So maybe it's both things on both sides. Maybe it's the top is curved with Capitol Commons and then hotel underneath it on both sides. I don't know, but I think I'd be comfortable giving you guys a little bit of leeway. I don't know if staff's comfortable with me saying that, but comfortable giving a little bit of leeway that, I'd recommend that we approve it with some understanding that you'll do the right thing as far as the sign goes. Suzanne?
How about if we approve it with that leeway, but with the purview of the planning board, just looking at it, just.
I don't even want it, no, I don't want it to come back. I mean,
No, not to come back, but to kind of just to review,
just give them some feedback.
And work with staff?
yeah, work with staff. You don't have to come back to us, because I think they kind of feel they know what came out of ADR and what came out of here.
Comfortable with that?
That would be
Okay, so that sounds like a motion. If you'd like to make a motion, I'll accept that
So
motion.
moved.
I'll second.
That motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Great.
About the lighting?
Lighting, so we'll handle the lighting as well in a separate item. Any questions or comments from staff on the lighting? There was nothing as far as recommendations, right?
Well, just that the lights not be permitted to flash or blink or
And
move.
changeable, but changeable on a daily basis or however you see fit.
Yep.
Not however you see fit, so I don't give you any leeway there. Don't want to give you any leeway there.
I would move approval.
I'll second that, too.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. You're all set.
Great project.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moves us on to item 9 of our agenda, 9A, if we could read that into the record.
Foxfire Property Management Incorporated on behalf of 2 Pillsbury Street LLC requesting an amendment to a previously approved minor subdivision at 2 Pillsbury Street in the institutional district. Essentially, there was a
I'm sick
typo on
to
the,
in 2 Pillsbury Street.
there was a typo on their
Like
previous
deja vu all
plan.
over again.
Is the applicant here? Come on up, sorry.
Now, you sure you have the right floor?
Wow. Wow. This is like the 4th time we've seen you.
You told me not to come back.
I did, I think that's what we said.
You did try to get out
I
of
think
it.
that's what we said. Don't come back. Okay,
Just
so
a
what was the issue? There was a typo?
Yeah, so if you look, the original floor plan that was submitted, and the, I guess the legend on the right here, square footage doesn't match what was on the floor plan, so we just resubmitted the floor plan with the correct square footage, so everybody's on the same page.
Everybody's on the same page. All right, so on this, Heather, from a report perspective, this is the whole shebang, right? We got to do the whole thing again?
I believe the
The minor
recommendation
subdivision
was
approval.
simply to,
Granted as approved prior?
it corrects the number, grant,
Okay.
to
so-
indicate a total of 4,126, which is the golden number, I hope.
I hope so, too.
And
final
subject to
number.
the same conditions. that
Okay,
previously-
so we've got here, do we have to do waiver requests and recommendations under 3.1 to grant the subdivision with precedent and subsequent conditions? Do we have to do that?
In my opinion, you do not. It's just
Okay.
amending the
So those have been
motion.
approved in prior, so we'll take a motion to amend the prior approval to recognize that the...
Do you want to open the hearing?
Oh, yes, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody in the audience wish to address this application? No? You sure? Last chance on 2 Pillsbury. So we'll close the public hearing.
It
and,
is, isn't it?
And if someone would like to make a motion to recognize that we are amending the prior approved application, and the only item that we're changing is the square foot, which is now being adjusted to 4,126 square feet, we will take a motion to grant that.
So moved.
And motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. You're all set. Now, don't come back.
Enjoy your deck.
All right, let's move on to item 9B on our agenda. If we could read that into the record.
Jonathan Halley, on behalf of Warren Street Architects, requesting minor site plan approval for a 1,389 square foot addition to the existing building at 27 Warren Street in the Civic Performance District.
All right, welcome to the table, Mr. Halley. If you could state your name formally for the record.
I am Jonathan Hawley with Warren Street Architects.
All right, if you could give us an overview of your project. Actually, let's get a quick staff update on this. And I want to just get architectural design review recommendations on the record if we could, Heather.
I'm going to let Beth give the overview
Okay.
of the project, and
Sure.
then we can talk about the ADRs.
Okay. Yep, so this is in addition to the existing building. It received several variances, including setback variances to be within 2 feet of the property line and parking space, reducing the number of parking spaces provided. The applicant previously requested a waiver to not provide an existing condition survey. The city surveyor reviewed the information available, and we spoke with the zoning administrator and the code administrator, and staff was not comfortable waiving that requirement because it is contingent on the building being within 2 feet of the property line, and since it's so close, they felt that this was a site that needed to have an existing condition survey done. We did do a site visit with the applicant and looked at a worksheet that another surveyor had done for an adjacent property, and were able to measure off that likely it will work. So that's why we decided to move forward, determine the application complete, and make the survey a condition of approval. So that's sort of the biggest issue. We had minor comments, but I think the ADR comments are probably a bigger issue here as well, and Heather can probably fill you more in. I know that they recommended denial of the application as submitted last week, but the applicant has revised since then, and that's what you see before you.
All right, could you give us an update on that, Heather?
Sure, I'm just going to give you the history and allow Jonathan to talk to the theory or reasoning behind each of the changes that were made. So the first graphic you have was the original application. ADR made some recommendations, original submission. Then if you flip 2 pages, attempting to take into account, or 3 pages, ADR's
First graphic
The
in
first-
in this paper packet.
and the paper packet that he's just giving. Thank you for putting these all together like this. Yeah, the first graphic and recommendations, he made which was essentially that the structure should look more different and be a different color. That's what
Steve.
you have on option 2. And then if you flip the page, that's
Wait a
this.
minute, what's option 2?
Option 2 is the
Page 2?
darker red color with the partition.
It's two pages.
Sorry, the pages aren't numbered, so I can't. there you go, there's option 2.
Option 2, okay?
So, and option 1 is behind option 2. These were his revisions, so that's the same thing, but in a similar color. ADR was not in favor of either of those revisions, and so they made an additional recommendation that then they recommended denial at that point. And then they offered some suggestions which they thought would be better solutions. And so the suggestion was that the front and the rear of the building be angled slightly to create the appearance of a slight sloped roof from the side, and that it be shingled to sort of appear to match the roof next door. So that is what the recommendation was made, and then the last page is what was submitted, or the next to last page. I am not entirely clear on what this is representing, so I'll allow Jonathan to explain what the final, talk about his project and explain what the final.
Let's just get clarity, Jonathan, if we can. So if I'm looking from the back of the packet, we've got looks like a layout here, and then this one's not labeled, but this one that I'm looking at here is the second to the last page. Yes. So is that the revised plan after ADR recommendations were taken into consideration?
Dated 6/18 down the bottom.
6/18, yes.
Yes.
So let's look at that. So 6/18 is the date, bottom left. Prior one is 5/14, so everybody's in order.
You want to let him just sort of present?
And then 5/14, so 6/18, yep. So I just want to make sure we're looking at the same thing.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
So this has been my 9-month adventure. So I just want to take you back here. I originally went to the ZBA to propose an addition off the back of the building, which would have been a straight gable out to the back. And the Maynard and Marsh in the rear opposed that, and ZBA turned me down. On my walk back from the ZBA that night, Maureen Richards and Sherry Gamble, who live in the adjacent property that I share a driveway with, encouraged me to come back with an application that brought an addition into the parking lot. They're 100% behind my moving forward with this. So I quickly revised the proposal, and I came back to the ZBA and was granted approval of that. Subsequently, and I was moving forward to the planning board, but Craig caught that the square footages didn't match to what the addition were, and my fault. The square footages that were proposed on the variance were net square footages and not gross square footages. So it didn't include the mechanical rooms or the square footage of the thickness of the outside wall. So if you look at, there's a last page. So my third time to the ZBA demonstrated what the changes were in terms of square footage. From a perception standpoint, I'm still building a 350 square foot footprint to the building, but it became an issue of adding that square footage. I had to have a variance for additional parking, blah, blah, blah. I was granted a variance. In that process of going to the zoning board for the third time, I had begun to get pricing, and Kevin Cheney had provided me a price for the foundation, and the difference between a full foundation and a crawl space was $2,000. So again, in my ignorance and my fault, before I went to the zoning board the third time, we added the full basement. So I've got a variance to build all of what's being proposed. Move forward to head to planning, and again, get to a planning board a couple of days before planning board and realize that now the square footage bumps me from just an ADR review to a full minor site plan application. Hence, my request for a waiver for the site survey. In the process of going to the variance, the zoning board, it did come up that there was concern as to this being an urban lot and where are the property lines. And in discussions again with Maureen Richard and Sherry Gamble, they said, 10 years ago before we bought the building, we had Tim Bernier survey our lot. So I called Tim, and he was kind enough to share with me the worksheet that he has, which is the last page of your packet, that he actually did survey both lots, but he never finished the research, if you will. He did find the bounds, and he did set a couple of pins. That was enough information for me to get through the third zoning application to convince the zoning board that what I was proposing was on my property. Hence, I'm headed back here to this planning board now, and that same issue has arisen. And I'm here tonight to plead my case and to try to, I'm really struggling with the reasoning here as to why, or I guess my questioning why I wavered to that the licensed survey would not be granted. I know that that's not an absolute. I was here last month when we did 16 Foundry Street. It was waived because of circumstances, so it's a possibility of it being waived. My issue here is that there is a pin in the driveway. There's a nail hole in the driveway. Heather and Paul Genwin were kind enough to come out and look at it. And I had a conversation with Mike Santa this morning. I realize that it's my responsibility and it's at my risk, but I've had, a surveyor has been out there, actually set the pin, and the addition that I'm proposing is 2 feet on my property. The last piece of paper that you'll find in this package is my hounding Tim Bernier for a couple of weeks for a price to actually survey my property. It's between $3,500 and $6,500 to create essentially a property line on a piece of paper that's not going to show anything different than we already know. So I'm struggling with something that I'm trying to build for under $100,000 and having to spend $6,000 on something that's not going to tell us anything any different. That's my plea with regards to the waiver. In terms of the back and forth with ADR, if you flip to the first page, the first elevation, which is dated February 23rd, one of the comments of ADR is that the addition that I'm proposing is too boxy. So if you flip to the third page, I want you to realize that the Maureen Richard and Sherry Gamble's property, which I share a driveway with, is a flat roofed building on the adjacent property. The Y across the street and everything else, if I were 100 feet further east, is all flat roofed properties. My initial intent was to create a green box. I wanted this to simply go away. So the grid that you see on the building was to mimic, actually, I printed a few examples of green walls, but if you look at the far right photograph down here, essentially the building would be sheathed in PVC and would have a lattice on the outside that would mimic the grid, if you will, but in a smaller scale. So you might have a 3-foot square in the trim, but the grid of the wire is 6 inches square. And essentially, the building was to be completely green. The comment from ADR was, well, we don't care that it's going to be green because if it dies, it's not there. We're concerned about what the building looks like. So we've gone back and forth. The ADR that I attended, they asked that the addition be a darker color so it stood out against that. So I provided them with a rendering of essentially the same design but in a darker color. And the following ADR meeting, which I did not attend, and they reviewed, they didn't like it. The comments came back with, I don't want to put words in Heather's mouth, but more of a mansard roof. And Heather was kind enough to redline a drawing and send it to me. The issue here, though, is, I'm trying to add space the most economical way that I can, and the outside bearing wall needs to bear and carry the roof. So this, what I'm proposing here is the top 10 feet of the building just be asphalt shingle, and it basically be proud, if you will, of the outside wall. The red line that she gave me made it more like a 412 pitch where the the roof, the center flat roof was several feet inside the building. Well, that requires a bearing wall or columns or, it essentially reduces the square footage of what I'm trying to do and adds considerable cost to the whole proposal. So this is closer to what I originally built. The reasoning for the box is I didn't, in terms of how the building comes together, creating a sloped roof, if you will, over this would have exceeded, would be much bigger than the building. The second floor in this particular case is a little over 12 feet high, and above the offices inside, I'm bringing all of the mechanical equipment into the building. So I don't have any rooftop units, I don't have anything that I'm screening. I mean, it's essentially what, I'm just trying to come up with a cost-effective way to add the square footage that I need in order to stay here. The last appearance, which is dated 6/18, I don't disagree that it doesn't look like it was always there. As an architect, that wasn't what I was trying to do. I was trying to create something a little bit different. But at this point, I'm sort of at my wit's end in terms of designing it by committee. So you now know my story and
Whole story. Nothing but the story. All right, comments from staff?
I have a few questions on your final drawing. So on the left and right elevations, is that just a flat, I don't understand what's going on. Is that just a shingled piece that's sort of set off from the wall? Or is it angled in some fashion? Or is it actually flush to the wall?
No, it's not flush, but
Set
it would go
off?
from the peak, the high point, and come out.
So all corner is just sort of coming out a little bit?
Yes.
So how does that work with the windows in the front?
The windows are just set in.
So it
There'll
would
be
just kind of...
There'll be a little soffit and a little,
Sticking out. And do you...
the same way that you would have windows in a normal
Roof
mansard,
line.
if you will.
Yeah. I can't picture it, that's why I would...
Yep.
And which solution do you think is preferable, this one or the first one that you came up with?
What I would prefer to do is have a green box.
Right,
But I'm
but so if
trying-
you did this solution, you wouldn't do the green piece? If you chose this final revision, would you also...
Would you still do the green
Would you
on the
still
left?
do the...
No, I wouldn't, because, so two things. One, the trellis system and the plants that you get to grow on this will literally tear the vinyl apart. I mean, they're going to attach to the building, they're going to grow, they're going to go, they'll go in under the siding, So with this last scheme, this is a vinyl. See, part of my issue, honestly, is that the city doesn't have an ordinance in terms of, I want to paint my building. I want to put siding on my building. 4 years ago, when I came to the city, I said, look, I'm tired of painting the building, I want to put vinyl. I was told, there's no permit process.
Let's do it.
So I can just do it. So if, the issue here is, it's tough if the building was standard, I can do anything I want to it. But today, where I'm coming to add something on, there's a lot of oversight and a lot of opinion.
So you would prefer the very first option that you came with?
If I could, yeah.
I just had those questions.
Okay.
I
Questions from the
don't
board?
have any
Matt?
recommendation.
So my question is, if you were to get approval for the green wall,
Yep.
and let's say the vegetation died, and you were to remove that, then what would it look like after you remove that? Would it look like the rendering that we see here, the red or the more beige color?
It would look like, essentially, the 514 edition.
It would look like that. Okay. Heather, I have a question about, could he add a green wall without getting approval from the city?
Yes. Well, unless he needed a building permit.
Nope.
Do you need a
Wouldn't
building
need-
permit?
No.
So he could just add, so I could add a green wall to
Yep.
my house as well.
Correct.
And rip the siding off.
No one had an issue with the green wall. Everyone thought that was lovely.
I'm just curious about what he would need permission for, because it
Yeah.
impacts how I think about this.
For some reason, I seem to remember that we saw the green wall in some iteration, and I frankly, I have problems with the box, you know, and the big blank wall with no windows in it and everything.
So
Going back.
Can I speak to that, though? The wall with 2 feet from the property line is required to be a 1-hour rated wall. I
Okay.
can't have any windows.
All right.
So one of the discussions with Maureen and Sherry next door was initially, can you put something, you know, that's where that
Right.
came out of.
Well, let me get back to what I was going to say, Jonathan, and that is that I happen to like the green wall, but I'm sensitive to the issue of, well, what happens if it dies? Then you're back to just this, you know, then it's just the wall. I mean, I think that the green wall, to me, is preferable to all the iterations that you've had to go through. But I do have that concern, you know, what does it look like in the winter, you know, and what does it look like, you know, if it dies and you choose, or a subsequent owner of the building chooses not to replant? I mean, that's my one reservation.
So the green wall, would you want it red or would you want it beige?
Oh, God, not red.
Oh, God, not red? Well, he's already got red on it, so there's already
Well,
red on it.
No, I understand that. I think the red in the original building is a terrific accent. I think the red as shown in the renderings with that lattice work, you know, design, it looks like
That was
the
just-
Tudor world gone crazy.
Yeah, that was just in response to the request.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that I don't know I don't think that that's an improvement.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking about how to sort of make Concord a little bit more fresh and hip, and I'm thinking, why not put that wall there? Why not make it red? Why not make it stand out and be different in the city of Concord? We just talked about the lighting on I guess the Hotel Concord now, and jazz it up a little bit. I don't, you know, I actually don't hate it. I don't hate the red. I actually prefer the contrast to the beige, and I would be in approval of voting for that.
So I have a question, John.
And the green wall on top of that. If it dies, then I'll be red, and I'll be happy with both.
On the photographs that you've taken, so I have no idea what page it is, but the photograph picture with the red car and the YMCA down in the bottom left.
Yep.
So if I'm looking at the picture up in the top right-hand corner, is your building on the right there in front of the yellow car? Or is that your
My
neighbor's?
building's right here.
That's your neighbor's. So you're the red building.
Yep.
So when I'm looking at the right elevation, say I'm going back to the 514 elevation drawings with the red lattice.
Yep.
Left elevation, is that the driveway side where the chimney is now,
So
right?
you're looking,
Yeah, those two right there.
yeah,
So what the person on the right-hand side, that building that's over there on the right, the beige building, is a single story in the back, is that right? That'll be looking against that, am I right?
are you talking
Yeah, that
Richards
building,
here?
that building there,
That's
in
a
the back,
two-story, that's a two-story building.
in the back of the building, is it 2 or 1?
In the back, there's about, it's a one-story with essentially a flat roof that goes back maybe 6 feet.
And that's where, if I looked right across from that, if I was right there on that little back L there and looking across, that's where the green wall's gonna be, right? If you
Yes.
got approved,
Yep.
okay, just so we're all clear on that. And then the elevation in the back, what's this one? The bottom right corner?
This
That
here,
one there, yeah, where's
that's the
that?
parking lot on the east side of my building. So the other side of this,
Okay. Okay, so the other side of that, which would be on our elevation drawings, your right elevation. So what you'd see from, I'm just looking at it from.
From that parking
so
lot,
looking
you'll
at
see
it from
this.
State Street, all the way across the parking lot, I'm gonna see
you
your
don't
right.
see the addition.
I'm gonna see your right elevation, you won't see it at all?
No.
How come?
Because the
building behind.
proposed addition only comes up to the ridge line.
Yeah,
The flat roof is, so it's right here. That's,
Top of it right there.
Yep.
okay, so that building, that part's already there, I got you.
this is all here, yeah.
That's all there, okay, I was missing that, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, right in there. So you're taking up the driveway part, and I got the driveway piece, and I got the ZBA recommendations. Yeah, certainly.
I think from a staff perspective, I don't really have an opinion about the architecture personally, but I'm wary of making the argument that what if the green screen dies? Because there are a lot of really cool things out there that have no windows, and they wouldn't be there if everyone said, what if it died? You're making an investment and a commitment to do that.
That is a valuable
Just wanna
point.
point
I
that
think
out.
what we're looking at is exactly what the renderings show, irregardless of green walls or not. You got to assume that there's nothing that's ever going to grow there. You find you can't grow anything there because whatever. But we got to approve it or deny it based on the fact that it will look like this or better. Let's put it that way, right? So at the worst it could look, the least terrible it could look is this. It's a good sales job, huh? So, but I think it's important because we're not here to say, what if it dies? You can replace it. You got to do this. I don't want to get into all that. So, yes, Matt. So again, clarification on recommendations from ADR was to deny it.
Correct.
Based on the fact that they didn't like the design. There was nothing else other than that. And before us tonight on our application that we've got, there's no waivers.
There is waivers.
There's the survey.
Waivers for the survey. Let's discuss the waivers for the survey. Any thoughts around the waivers for the survey? And we know what staff wants to deny the waiver for survey, so let's discuss that.
So I guess I'm kind of confused, when the survey that was done by Tim previous for the abutter seems so simple and so almost exactly what you need, why does it cost $6,500?
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
I was
he,
so floored by his email today.
yeah, that raises a red flag to me.
That's it. I don't want to do it
But,
for
and
you.
2 feet, is that the 2 feet the side where the blank wall is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider doing that in brick? Or,
No brick on my building.
Yeah.
I mean,
that, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter really, because as it exists, I was just thinking then it would look different, but maybe, there are old buildings that have clapboard and brick, but I was just wondering, that might solve some of your problems, if you ever wanted anything to grow on it. I think with the 2 feet, and you've got a parking lot right next to it, the chances of something flourishing on that green wall are slim to none, but that's your choice.
yeah, I can tell you that the green wall that's on the co-op has about 2 feet of open soil in front of it, and it covered the wall in less than a year.
Right, but it's deciduous, so it will lose its leaves in the winter. And that's up to you.
Heather?
I guess
Sorry.
I think it's important to have the property surveyed with such a tight setback.
Okay.
I'll just give a brief history from staff perspective. Each of the submissions that was made to the ZBA had slightly different information about where this property line was located. And then when it came to planning, it was different again. So from our perspective, there has been not very little certainty. And we went out there, we saw, yes, here's the pin, and we measured, yes, this is how far it is from the house. But if you'll notice in Tim's survey, there's no building located on that square. And that's the most important piece of information. Where is the building on that square? You know, for whatever reason, when their original application came in, they just used the city's GIS, which is not correct at all. And it was saying all kinds of crazy stuff about it was completely wrong, basically. So we were very uncomfortable with approving it without having a building located on a surveyed plan because of how tight everything was. Just because we know there's a pin out there and we measured 14 feet doesn't mean that should be the documentation or the only documentation no, we would require this of anyone. And I can't think of any situations where we've granted a waiver for a building addition when there was a minor site plan review. In the case of the recent condo, there was no building addition, there was no construction being proposed. There was existing buildings, and so it made sense to do that. So yeah, we are definitely, and even so, normally we would require this information prior to having the planning board hearing. You wouldn't even get to this point without having provided enough information for us to say that it's complete, well, or that it's ready to even be reviewed, because that's information we would require to be for completeness to be determined. We physically went out there and saw that there's a pin in the ground and measured. That's the only reason that we're here and that we allowed to come to this point, because we were confident that it could be documented so that in the future someone would know exactly where it's supposed to be. So the recommendation from staff is that we grant approval, again, which is not standard procedure or something that we typically do, subject to the condition that at some point this information be provided and be documented for the record. Because everybody's not going to go out there and find the pin and measure to know that it's there.
Question.
Yes, David.
Maybe naive of me, but at some point, wouldn't a deed reflect the location of the building and the boundaries?
That's what the surveyor does. That's what the surveyor does.
But doesn't one exist? When you bought the building, you must have received a deed with a plot plan and a location of the building relative to the boundaries on that plot.
Yeah, I can show you the deed. The deed goes back to the early 1900s. It's maybe 6 sentences.
Oh.
You know, it says, runs east 41 feet, turn right, you know.
So unfortunately not applicable in this situation.
No.
Because it
And
doesn't
those
identify the building
deeds that go
well
back
enough.
that far, you know.
When they mentioned rods,
Yeah, they usually don't have the building dimensions
So
on the deed.
if I may, I just would like to rebut Heather's comment. If I eliminate the square footage of the basement and go to a slab on grade, it's not a minor site plan application. And the survey requirement wouldn't be there unless, and I had this conversation with Mike Santa, and you guys can talk to him. His basic response to me was, the pin's there, you're 2 feet off, it's your risk. You know, and I'm comfortable with the neighbor. You know, I have a great relationship with her. The pin's there. It was placed by a surveyor. You know, to spend $6,000.
It's ridiculous.
It just, to me, I don't. There's no question to me. The pin is in the, and it's directly adjacent to the wall that we're trying to put up. I'm gonna repave the entire driveway for the neighbors because of the excavation to get this done. I'm just asking the board to consider that, that's all.
Okay, David?
But just, have you shopped to the surveyors for price?
To be honest with you, I went to Tim because Tim did Maureen's. I do a lot of work with Mark Sargent. I do a lot of work with Mark Sargent, and I asked him for a favor, and he said, John, both my crews are in North Conway until September. So.
Okay, any other follow-up?
I would say that when we originally spoke with Mike, because I was sympathetic to that argument as well, if he was just doing the crawl space, you know, he wouldn't have to do this. I will note that he has been asked multiple times through the ZBA process to provide a survey plan. Not the first time he's heard it, even without the basement. But when we originally talked with Mike Santa, he said he wouldn't have even given a building permit even for the smaller size without having something documenting the location of the property line. I think that since you've spoken with him, and you explained your situation, no, that is true. That's what he told us when we originally spoke, in a development team meeting, because he called me up and he said, I just spoke with Jonathan Halley and I have more information now. And what I said previously, you know, I'm comfortable now that if it wasn't required, I would be comfortable with it. But that is not what he said originally, and that is not what he said when we originally made this recommendation. So I will clarify that.
Thank you.
So, for the record, Mike is code.
Right, Mike Santa.
That's correct. Byron, you look like you want to say something.
No, why would you think that?
Okay.
No, I'm perplexed by this. I mean, I'm really perplexed by this. I mean, I was walking by Jonathan's site, and he dragged me off the street and physically manhandled me and showed me the pin. So I feel that I'm intimately familiar with it, and also his argument. And I've been mulling it over. In fact, I talked to staff about it, and I'm really torn about this. I mean, on one hand, I always hesitate to overturn staff. They're the professionals. We're the public input, and I don't think that it's unusual. I mean, I don't think we can't overturn staff, but I always respect what staff says. On the other hand, I mean, I understand what Jonathan's trying to do, and I understand that, there could be considerable cost, to essentially comply with this requirement. I wish I had a solution. I don't really have a solution. I don't know which way to go on this.
Quick question, though.
David?
Does the elimination of the basement, which then changes your issue, have you moved, is the basement accommodating the mechanicals that you brought inside?
Nope.
The purpose of the basement is?
Just storage.
Storage, okay.
The difference between a 4-foot crawl space and a full basement was $2,000. It seems like a no-brainer,
Other than the,
Yeah, where it threw me and where I ended up, absolutely.
What I'm hearing from Heather
Well, the
is that...
difference is $6,000.
it was actually $8,000 when you added all that.
But what I'm hearing from...
Should we keep going?
What I'm hearing from planning staff is that code now says that regardless, code would require, even if it was just a crawl space.
I think that Jonathan spoke with him today or yesterday, and Mike said that he sort of reversed his previous opinion that regardless of the size of, what he triggered, that he would require a survey. Essentially, he's comfortable with not having a survey.
All right. Well, then I would...
Hang on, before we do that, any member of the audience wish to address this application? Thousands of people back there want to speak up, so we'll close the public hearing.
Do you want to just note that we did receive email correspondence from the abutter?
From an abutter that it was opposed, I believe, right?
No, they were in support of I think they were the original opposers of.
The tree will be pruned.
The original
and the fence will
pros,
be
that was
fixed.
the fence and the tree. That was what they wanted, the fence and the tree.
That's right.
So the fence and the tree will be fixed. So let's take this in two steps. Let's address the design considerations from the architectural design review and see if we can settle in on a design before we move on to the waiver of the survey. Any thoughts or motions that anybody would like to make regarding designs? We've got 3 or 4 different versions here. Are we in favor of a green? Are we in favor of a box that could potentially house green stuff, which is shown on 514 drawing, either in the red, I'm not going to propose red, but say the beige lattice that's there, or are we in favor of the revised from 618, which has vinyl siding and a pitched roof? Byron?
Mr. Chairman, I like the green wall, which is the original design. I think that's somewhat hip. I understand, and I would like to see that. I like that on the original design. I'm not 100% wild about the red. On the other hand, if the way to get consensus would be to say, do the red, do the green wall, then I would go with that. But I like the original design. Now that I understand it, and now that, I think that mitigates my concerns about that great big wall. So.
Suzanne?
So as I'm looking at this, the 223 design is very similar to the May one, correct?
Yeah.
Right?
It is, except that
Had some windows at the top, is that right?
the window placement is exactly the same. The difference being between the February 23rd
February 23rd and May 14th.
and the May 13th is 3 walls, all green. When this originally came out, the subsequent meeting after I was just trying to appease Maureen when she said, I'm going to look at this wall, I'd like it to be green. Can you make it a trellis wall? And so the thought that came out of that was, and this was a different, where I've landed and what I'd like to see happen is, you know, essentially, the outside of this building is completely PVC. It's just PVC sheet, PVC trim, it's painted, whatever color it wants to be. You know, the really ironic thing is after it's built and I can paint it any color
Anything
I
you want.
So,
Paint it purple if you want. I'm not here to talk about purple paint. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's
So you had windows, though, on the top of the 223, or are those fake
the same
blanks?
thing. No, it's the same
It
window.
looks different, though. There is a
It does- I don't
different look
see-
to 223.
On the 514, I don't see windows.
I don't know if those
on
are
that
windows, but there's
side.
something up at the top of those,
You
the
might have
very
just-
top of the roof line on the left elevation.
The windows going down the wall are the same, but not at the very top.
You're talking the squares up along the top?
Yeah, what are those?
No, that was just paneling.
Oh,
Oh,
That was
so it
just
wasn't,
paneling.
it wasn't windows.
It was not windows. The windows are the blacks.
so I guess what I'm wondering is, what are those white things? So it's just nothing.
That was just paneling, PVC paneling, similar to what this doll
Squares are-
essentially.
Oh,
all-
that's scores, okay.
Okay.
Jonathan, did I hear you say that you're now considering like green on, not just on that one wall, but
The whole box.
the whole box? I'm down with it.
Sounds
Well,
like
and I
I'm
think, I guess it's not,
down with it.
it's kind of like a color thing for me. I mean, if you want to do it, you can do it, but I don't think that makes it a better design.
No, no.
So if you want to do it, I mean, it's like telling someone they can't plant azaleas, but you can plant junipers. You know, I think that's totally up to you. Is that little small window a bathroom?
Yes.
Or how that's,
Back elevation? Yeah.
it's funny how form follows function.
Yeah.
Indeed.
As far as, I don't like the big red wall. So I think your first idea is fine, and I think the one that was 514 is fine, but that's if the other pieces all come together, I guess. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I just like, if everything goes through, if this is what you have to do, you have to do it. Now, on this flat wall here, they're brown, those panels, but on the front, is that just because you forgot to put the brown in, the tan?
Where are you
The
looking?
white? I'm back to 223.
We're not looking at that at all.
What?
Yeah, 223 is up, so look at the 514.
Well, no, the 514, that's why I was just.
So the 223 had vinyl siding.
That's why it's different on the front, so that's out.
Oh, okay.
No, but he said that it had a green wall.
Okay, yeah, okay, I see, all right.
But the 223 has the green wall also.
It had it on the far side before I knew what the implications were going to be with the green wall.
Oh, so you don't want that one at all now?
I don't want vinyl siding. I won't do vinyl siding in the green wall. The green wall
Has
plant
to
will
be, has to be
eventually.
PVC, right?
You'll see it.
Okay, no, okay, so basically, your first iteration, the 223, isn't what you really want. You want the 514.
514 beige or red, right?
Option one?
What?
Option
There's
one.
two 514s.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
geez.
Option one or option two? Option
Oh,
one is
option one,
beige.
option one.
is
Yeah, I
beige.
prefer
Option
option
one is
one.
what you really want.
Okay, so I'm hearing some consensus here that
I
we're.
don't care red or beige.
No, but you're
try
not
to move
doing
things
the
along
binder.
here.
Paint it green after.
So I'm hearing some consensus that we are happy with the 514 option one, again, in opposition of ADR's recommendation to deny it.
Yes.
That we would approve that design as submitted. I don't need to take a motion on that, but is that correct?
Correct.
Well, let's take a motion. Let's just,
Let's do
I'll move
let's
that.
just do a motion. So we will, we've got a motion to, we're not doing a site, actually, yeah, I guess we are. So let's back up the train here. So we're gonna do this all in one. So we're gonna, as part of our motion, make a motion that we are gonna grant you the, option one, the 514 drawings, we'll call them the beige drawings, so in 514. So let's address the waiver for review, for survey. Do we have any consensus or anybody that would like to make a motion to grant the approval as outlined by staff, which is to grant the minor subdivision approval, provide a conditional to grant the minor site plan approval with precedent condition 1, which is to provide an existing condition survey in accordance with staff recommendations outlined in comment 1.5, 2, to address the technical review comments noted in section 2, and 3, the final plan shall be signed and sealed. Subsequent conditions 1, which is to submit 3 sets of final plans, and somewhere in there, I'm sure it says you're going to take out the tree and fix the fence, right? Somewhere in there it says that. So, so we have 2 options.
No, we don't have that in our report.
I mean, that was a public comment that came in after the report.
Okay.
So if that's
So-
something that you want to add in.
We will note that the fence will be fixed and the tree will be pruned or removed? Pruned. So we will add that as a subsequent condition, Beth? Do we want to address that? I mean, I don't know if we even want to put that in there. We'll give you some leeway.
It was a public
to deal
comment
with-
that came in.
To deal with, and you're on the record as saying you're going to fix it, and we'll take your word for that. How about that? And I'll leave it in as part of the comments.
I can just put it in the decision.
So we have two things before us. We can either grant the minor subdivision approval as outlined here and recommend that we do a survey, or remove that condition 1, precedent condition 1, which is to provide an existing survey and use the survey that's been provided.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we not require the survey. I think that it is.
So your recommendation is a motion to grant the minor subdivision approval with removal of precedent condition 1 to provide an existing condition survey in accordance with staff recommendations.
Indeed.
Okay?
I'll second that.
Motion.
So can I have a,
Yes.
so when granting a waiver, we have to base it, so the site plan regulations have requirements for granting waivers.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be, you have to say whether it's an unnecessary hardship that may result from strict compliance with these regulations, or there are specific circumstances relative to the site plan or conditions in the site plan that indicate that the spirit and intent of these regulations may be served by the alternative proposal, which is to not provide that.
The latter.
The latter or hardship?
Well, hardship. Let's say hardship.
So I would amend that it's granting of a waiver, it's not just the removal of precedent condition 1,
Okay.
it's granting a waiver to not provide an existing condition
So,
survey.
Thank you, Beth.
So for the record, you get that, Lisa?
We also need a justification
Yeah.
for.
But again, is it a hardship recommendation? Is that what you'd like to go
Well,
with?
There's 2 pieces to why it's, whether it's what Beth said, hardship or the specific circumstances, but then also, what's the justification for, is it just that it's a hardship? Usually we have 2 parts to it. We say,
Right.
based on the fact that we have enough
Based on the fact that we
information,
have
or
enough
based on,
information, opinions
right, or
present.
based on the fact of, whatever.
So,
What would you prefer, Mr. Chairman?
well, I would prefer it as a hardship, and I'd prefer it, the information to say that we've concurred, well, I don't want to put staff, I don't want to put Mike Santa's group in this at all, but I would say that based on staff comments as late as today, that we're comfortable with a hardship waiver based on the fact that we have enough information to reasonably say that the survey is accurate and the building will be on the property that Mr. Halley owns. Is that appropriate?
Got that? We're good.
I can't say it again, so if your motion still
moved.
holds with that, you've made a motion, and I believe it's been seconded by
Me.
By David.
by David. We good? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. I'm going to abstain. Well, I'm going to recommend we approve it as well. So we'll stay. I'll say yay. So the yeas have it. So that's been approved, and I think that's it, right?
You did the waiver, now you have to do architectural design review and minor site plan
So,
approval.
minor site plan approval we just did, didn't we?
You just granted the waiver.
We just granted the waiver. So now we'll grant minor site plan approval and not recommend.
But why don't you go to
We'll do
architectural design? Why don't you do architectural design?
3.1, which is to deny architectural design review approval for the proposed building addition as per motion of the ADR on June 12th. We are not going to recommend that, is that right? We are not going to recommend denying ADR? How do you want to handle that? Do we need to make a motion?
You would just say.
Yeah, you
approve
recommend
architectural.
approval, subject to whatever you want to approve it subject to.
Recommend approval, which is based on the plans of option 1 under 514
Correct.
Right.
and not recognize that IDRs.
You don't have to add any.
We don't have to do any of
Just-
that,
just
okay.
do the-
So, and then grant minor subdivision approval with precedent conditions outlined, again, with the waiver that we
Are you
just.
going to do architectural design review and minor site plan review in the same motion?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
that was not clear to me.
Oh, sorry.
We usually do them as separate.
Yeah,
Let's
we
do
do.
them. Wow,
It's just a very confusing.
tough
It
crowd.
is a tough crowd.
Okay, so I've got here under 3.1, right?
We know, we got your motion. Yep. We got your
The
motion for
motion's been
that.
made to grant approval,
Rich,
right? So that motion's been made and seconded? Yep.
I think you have to make it for one of these numerous options.
he said subject to
did
that.
that.
Option
Sorry, I didn't-
514, yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Option 1 under 514. So that motion was made and seconded?
Yes,
So we take a vote?
yes, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One no. I approve as well. So that motion carries, and now we got to grant the minor subdivision approval? Is that
Site
correct?
plan.
Site plan approval?
Subject to
Can't
the
wait till we get
removal
this
of
done.
precedent condition number 1.
So 3.2 is to grant minor subdivision, minor site plan approval
There we go.
with the removal of precedent condition 1 as outlined in your packet.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
So if perchance the survey is wrong, and
it's
then-
on him.
It's on what?
It's on him. He has to rip the building
So,
down.
no, or would he come for an, like a
He'd be-
variance for 1 foot setback?
You'd never
I mean,
know
do you
'cause he's
start
not gonna
from
do
the
the survey.
point that you think, do you start your construction from the point of what you think your property line is, or from your building?
It's from the building. So that you can put a tape from the building to the pin, it's 14 feet. The addition's 12 feet. So I mean,
2-foot buffer.
you can,
But the point is, if it's wrong, it's on him.
You just don't know. It's
The
one spot,
angles
does not
and
make a
left and
line.
right, yeah, there's some
there are
wiggle.
2 pins.
There's some
we
wiggle
found.
room. There's some wiggle room.
Pin in the back was found.
I was not aware of that.
Yes.
Okay,
Not number 1?
and subsequent
And
condition.
subsequent condition number 1.
I second.
Good. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? I bet you wish you were an item 9B on the agenda instead of 9C. Well,
What are you gonna do?
You'll live by.
Quick scenario of what it is.
No.
So
Provide it, I can put that in the report to council. This is an amendment to the city code, so it's not an amendment to the zoning code or any of the regulations that are governed by planning board. So that's why we don't need to make a recommendation for it. But I wanted to let you know what was going on.
So
Right now, go ahead.
I think that it's important too, from a council perspective, to recognize the fact that some type of regulatory environment from a code enforcement, if it falls under code enforcement for the sidewalk side and the outdoor side, the outdoor dining, that it locks people in to say, I'm here from my restaurant, I want my outdoor dining permit for the 2019 season, here's my $100 for that, and my sidewalk sign permit. They get a little sticker that they can put on that they're officially part of there's some closure to it, as opposed to just saying, here's what you do, go ahead and do it. So we know who's doing it, we know how many people are participating. It's not a revenue stream that you're gonna pay off any debts with, but it's a small little revenue stream to help manage it. So I think there's some logic behind it to not just put structure around it, but put structure around it that makes people come in and say, hey, I want to do outdoor dining this year. I'm Dos Amigos on Main Street. I want to do outdoor dining and I want to do a sign. Here's my $125 for the 2 of them. For the 2019 season, they get a sticker, they're recognized, and that.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, the small fee basically helps cover the costs of the materials needed to do the stickers
Right.
and the review of it, the paperwork and staff time involved to just review it.
So that was my question about why you settled on the 25 proposed for the signs and 50. So, and I appreciate you keeping those costs low.
I just chose the lowest of the municipalities that were surveyed.
I put the range down here, yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that. So I appreciate that, and I think that the merchants will appreciate that as well.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, $125 or $75 for 2 permits like that, I think is easily absorbed by somebody that's going to be doing that and recognizing it.
Did this, and I might have missed it, and I apologize if I did, but does this address people getting sandwich board signs that are a block away?
Yes.
Yeah.
They can put them on Main Street as well? They have to put them in front of their,
Within a distance in
So
there.
what it basically says that you have to put it in front of your business, and that if you don't have street access to your business, that you can put the sign adjacent to the street access to your business. So, for instance, Capital
Bicentennial
Deli.
Store.
But yeah, exactly. Those folks don't have any street access.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worded to say they can have something at the location where they do have the street access.
so we haven't really, basically, we're not really addressing the proliferation of sandwich boards.
That's right.
It's kind of crazy.
That's right, yeah, and
No,
we're not
it's not-
addressing it.
But they have to be out of the way, because I think maybe that's, we have a designated,
Right. It helps with the location of them.
yeah.
And so it helps with it basically helps with the location of them. It also says they shouldn't be higher than this, this 3 or 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide, because some of them are really large. So this sort of, next year, when if this is approved and then implemented in this way, when they come, they'll have to get signs that are smaller. The folks that have like 5 or 6 foot tall signs are just really massive signs, and they'll have to put them in the right locations. But no, the intent was not necessarily to take away anyone's right to put a sign there. If in the future people want to push it even a step further, some people made suggestions to me about having like a lottery approach, or having, there were some different suggestions people made about how to minimize the amount of signage. But that's not what we were intending to do at this time.
Well, I mean, I don't think they really have a right to put a sandwich board on public property, but we're allowing them to.
Correct.
Right? They're being allowed to do it, so it can be regulated.
Yeah, that's true. So one thing that's kind of that I find really positive about this is right now there's no regulatory process either for outdoor dining or for the signs. We actually have 2 type of sidewalk encumbrance permits right now. Engineering has one for temporary construction purposes, and code has one for the outdoor dining. So these proposals help to clarify the difference between those two, and some of the ordinance amendment recommendations are to change some of the language to clarify that those engineering permits are different permits. That their process in engineering was completely legitimized through the code, and so now they both will be, and it'll be more clear that there's these 2 different things, and they're called different things, and they work in different ways, and they don't trigger the same things, because that wasn't really clear before.
Okay.
So anyway,
Any
yeah,
questions?
I just wanted to, and I have an example of a revised application, so there's an example one. I put a little graphic in there for the elevations of the sidewalk zones, and I revised the rules and regulations that they have in place to accommodate the recommendations from the design guidelines.
Okay. Any other comments?
Good work.
No? Good
Would
work.
you like to, would the board like to make an official recommendation on the fees, or should I just summarize the feedback that?
I'd give it to them and let them decide. Again, I don't feel that that's in our purvey to say, hey, we think you should be doing this or doing that. I do think there should be a fee, but I don't want it to be.
But I guess more accurately, does the board as a whole, are you in favor of that, or should I just say?
Of a fee, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's not
I mean,
sure
I-
it's the answer for the board.
I think there should definitely be a fee to regulate the sandwich boards. If they have an area, which most of them do, for outdoor dining, I don't think that has to be excessive,
And
because.
again, we need some clarification on where Main Street, Cheers has outdoor dining now, and does that fall into this as well, or is that?
Well, that's not on city property, as far as I know.
Oh, that's not on the sidewalk, so that
Yeah.
wouldn't be, that's right, yeah, good point.
Margaritas has.
Margaritas,
Yeah.
yeah, has outdoor dining, but that's in their space.
Yeah, so that might be something that, maybe it's premature to have
So the draft has it up above their building, but it's all in their space, okay.
Right, yeah.
Cheers is on city space.
Cheers is on city space?
But it's.
Charge them.
Oh, wait, I think I heard that rumor.
Defer to city council.
But it's not on a sidewalk.
Let city council decide how much they want to spend, right?
It's not it's not on a
Hey, the
sidewalk.
amendment one's not linking, Lisa. The
I see that.
Yeah, it's trying to download it, so.
You can push on it.
I don't want to download, I didn't want to do it, so. Okay, so there's no action required on us, other than, are we as a board in favor of recommending a price be attached to both the sidewalk dining and the sign piece of it?
Yes.
Okay.
We have
Good
one
work.
last item.
One last item.
Great.
Hit it.
I move adjournment.
No.
Rich's,
Oh,
Rich's term, as it
Woo-hoo!
It's expired.
Oh.
Are you sure?
I
Would
tried to
someone
get out
like
of
to
it by
make a
adjourning the
motion?
meeting.
To appoint Mr.
To reappoint
Mr.
him.
Hicks as chairman.
Yeah,
I think.
if he wants to be.
No, I would move that.
I will gladly accept, yeah.
I think you have to leave for them to.
Oh, yeah, I gotta
I'm just
leave, I
kidding,
gotta
I'm
get
just
up from the
kidding.
table.
I don't know if
Know
you're
for the
not.
record that I moved myself from the table.
I make the motion that you stay on.
Second.
It's all over the place, unanimous. Second.
So who says all those in favor, if you know?
Byron as the vice chair is gonna do that.
Can I technically be the vice chair as a city councilor?
Probably not. We didn't
Probably
appoint a
not.
vice chair.
So Matt will take the vote for us. Matt,
So
you're next on the table.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So I'll come back into the room now and be back. So
Welcome
it gives me
back.
my last item on the agenda, is that right now? Which is to adjourn. So, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. Good night.
I didn't vote against it, I'm tired.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash.